Hi, it's Kent here from Apprentice Recruit, and today we are talking funding based around apprenticeships. One of the areas that we get quite a number of inquiries from companies that are either utilising our services or just trying to find out a bit of general information about apprenticeship programs and what's available and how they go about it. What levels of funding are available to go with the apprenticeship? There's a few different levels that are involved, and that's anything from the federal level right through to the state level when it comes to the training, and potentially even some programs that state level are running to support the apprenticeship programs. So we thought we'd touch on some of the main funding that's out there, generally within the federal funding area, and just talk a little bit about some of that state funding so that you know how all that comes together as well. So we'll kick it off with the federal funding. And again, this is fairly general with what we're going to go through here. And you do need to check for your specific industries to ensure that your industry and your particular occupation do actually qualify for this funding. But this does apply to the majority that are out there. So we kick off with the standard incentives, which are the commencement and completion payments. And for the majority of apprenticeships that are out there, there's a $1,500 commencement payment, which is paid at 6 months. And there's a $2,500 completion payment, which is paid when the actual apprentice has been signed off and they've completed their apprenticeship. So they're the two main areas of funding that companies will be eligible for or should be eligible for. There are a couple of others where, depending on the individual circumstances of the apprentice or the company, there may be some eligibility. And some of those include, if it's an adult apprentice, there's an additional $4,000 that's on the table from the federal government for putting an adult apprentice on. And they've closed the gap on that now. An adult apprentice used to be classified as somebody who was over 25 years of age. Now it's anyone who's over the age of 21 is classified as an adult apprentice, not only for their wages, but also for the incentives. So they've kind of leveled the playing field now. There used to be a bit of a grey area for those that were between the age of 21 and 24, where they were still regarded as an adult apprentice, but there was no additional funding for them. Well, they've closed the gap on that now, and as a company, you'd be able to pick up that additional funding for them. And may also include a rural or regional payment, and that's an additional $1,000 as well. And you need to check on your specific postcodes to find out what the eligibility would be for those or for that funding. So then there's state government level funding, which is what's contributed towards the training of the apprentice. And this is the money that companies don't see, but it's certainly a major contributing factor that's coming in from the state government to support the training of the apprentices. And that funding can range anywhere from, say, $10,000 across the 4 years of an apprenticeship and go anywhere up to $16,000, $17,000, $18,000, depending on the actual trade itself. And that's a significant amount of money that the state governments are also tipping in to train the apprentices, which isn't coming out of an employer or the apprentice's pocket. It's purely coming from state government. Some state governments have also got out their fee-free training. So normally there's a financial contribution that the apprentice or the employer need to also make to the training funding. And I use a rough figure of it's around about 10% of what the total value of the training is. So say it was, say, $16,000 that they would be contributing for the training directly to the training organisations. It's around about $1,600 that the apprentice or the employer would need to then tip in towards the training over that 4-year period. And again, that's a bit of a general sort of rule of thumb. Some state governments have now been running a program for the last 18 months to 2 years where they're actually classifying it as fee-free, which means that the state government are picking up the tab for that rather than the apprentice or the employer. So I suppose it's a little bit more of an incentive for somebody to get in there and actually do an apprenticeship and not have a financial commitment behind it. So when you look at the total value of the funding that you're looking at for an apprentice, with combining both the federal government and the state government, you're looking somewhere between, say, $20,000 up to around $30,000, depending on the apprentice and depending on the age of the apprentice. Depending on the trade as well, there's about 11 trades out there that are in high skilled demand. And so the government have also tipped in another $4,000 to those trades. So they are really trying to encourage businesses out there to take on more apprentices. And so they're tipping in $4,000. So quite a significant amount of money on top of the additional federal government funding that's available for those trades as well. So again, it is quite significant, especially if you look at putting an adult apprentice on, which means that you're looking at, say, $4,000 in normal funding, $4,000 for the adult apprentice, and another $4,000 for a specific trade. Throw in there a regional if that's you, and so you're looking at around about $13,000. Throw the state government funding on top of that, and again, that could be up to, say, $16,000. That's where you're totaling or tipping out at around about $30,000 worth of funding for putting an apprentice on. Quite a significant amount of money that's being contributed by both parts of government. We'll leave some links in the notes below for those of you who may want some further information. If there's any companies out there that you know may be considering putting an apprentice on, had never put one on before and aren't aware of some of the funding that is available out there, then it might be worthwhile in tagging them in or sharing this particular bit of content with them so that they are at least a little bit more educated about at least some of the money that may come with them. Keep an eye out, as we'll have some more content coming out shortly, and we'll talk about wages of apprentices and where you can find out further information about them. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. At least if you subscribe and get notified of future updates as soon as we get anything come through that's in reference to any funding or any changes that's going on out there in the apprenticeship sphere, then you'll be able to at least get notified and keep up to date with what's happening straight away. So thanks again for your time, and it's Kent once again from Apprentice Recruit.